Today on an all-new Dr. Phil, he pled guilty to sexual battery.
I'm not a rapist. I'm not a Ted Bundy.
You have 4 family members that all tell a very consistent story about you being abusive. You've pled guilty to charges. You say none of it's true.
I wasn't swinging bats at him. I wasn't hitting my kids. I wasn't hitting my dog. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. I got backed into a corner by the prosecutor.
You backed yourself into this corner.
Come on. If you are completely innocent, you're guilty of being dumber than a box of rocks.
You still have not taken accountability for shutting me in the room, for hitting me, for starving me.
I never did that. I was diagnosed with PTSD.
I don't get how you have such bad PTSD because you never fought in the war.
Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. We'll count you down.
Today's going to be a changing day in your life.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you. Well, yesterday, Cory and his daughter McKinley sat down for their very first conversation in 5 years, and things got heated quickly. Now, that's because McKinley claimed her father physically abused her and her mother from an early age, tortured the family dog, and once even attacked her pregnant stepmother. But McKinley decided she never wanted to see her father again when she learned he went to jail for 150 days for sexual battery of a minor. Now, Cory insists his daughter is delusional and that he never abused McKinley or anyone else for that matter. Cory says he is the victim of false accusations that have destroyed his livelihood and his recent run for Congress. So why is Cory so adamant he was framed? Well, you're going to really want to hear me break down his side of the story, which does seem to line up with what the courts determined as facts. Here's what happened yesterday.
My dad is physically abusive and violent.
McKinley, where are we at?
Growing up, he would frequently hit my mom. He would scream at us, he would throw things, and he would punch holes in the walls. One time, he tried to drag me out of the window while we were backing out of the driveway. Once he got remarried to my stepmom, we continued to witness abuse. We could hear him pushing my stepmom into walls, and she was pregnant.
This is a decision you made on your own. Why all of a sudden that 5 years ago you said, I don't want to see him anymore?
Well, it all started when I was little. He would scream at us, he would hit the dog, he would hit my mom, he would throw things at us, he would hit me sometimes.
You're talking about verbal abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse.
Yes.
Just to be crystal clear, I've never been physically abusive. Growing up with the kids, I may have spanked them or tapped them on the backside. When McKinley's been offended, I've apologized to her and tried to make amends with her.
She says you were abusive to the dog, to her mother, to her, and you say, I've never abused anybody ever.
I've never physically abused my ex. I've never laid a hand inappropriately in an abusive manner on my oldest daughter, McKinley.
My friend told me my dad was arrested for having sex with underage girls. It made me really uncomfortable to be around him after that.
Back in 2009, I was the owner of a security company. I was patrolling a property and I was limping. A female came down and she's like, hey, are you okay? I'm a massage therapist. I made 4 appointments. There was nothing sexual that happened during those sessions. Done and got a text message on my phone from this girl saying, I'm only 17. I was blown away. I was like, what? When I decided to run for Congress last year, I got a lot of flack on Facebook accusing me of being a pedophile, a sex offender. During the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, I was in tears and heartbroken because I've been in that position before.
You maintain that you did absolutely nothing wrong.
That's correct, Dr. Phil.
You
Correct.
did plead guilty.
I did.
You sent a text message telling her that you had dreams about her and that you wanted to marry her when she turned 18. Did you send her a text message?
I don't remember if I sent a text message or not.
You raped an underage girl!
I didn't rape
and
anybody.
And you're playing the victim!
It's in the police report.
What is wrong with you? Why'd you bring them to the house
at that
then?
point in time.
and made me and my sister hide in the room.
Didn't make you guys hide in
Yeah, you
any
did.
room.
I came out and you hit me and told me to go back in there.
I never hit you.
Yeah, you did.
Is there a police report on that?
You know how
Mom-
hard that is to prove when I'm
Not
5
once-
years old?
Not once in Mom's divorce filing with me was there ever abuse mentioned once. Not
So
once.
what?
Not
You
abuse.
still did it.
That is an absolute lie.
You're the one getting caught in lies here.
I have never abused
How
you.
can you just literally sit here and lie to me?
In the past 5 years, Cory says he's done everything he can to see his daughter, including involving the police and the courts, to try and force his parental rights. After a messy divorce, Cory believes McKinley's mother brainwashed McKinley into hating him and has practiced textbook parental alienation.
My ex-wife has alienated my relationship with my daughter by turning her against me. Due to any negative feelings or resentment she may have toward me, maybe using my daughter to cause me heartache and pain in retaliation. I went down to pick her up, and McKinley took off running in the house and didn't come out. And then every other visitation after that, that's kind of what I've been putting up with, is Sheena withholding McKinley from me.
My dad blames my mom for everything. He thinks it's all her fault. He thinks she is brainwashing me. He likes to act like I'm some crazy, disrespectful teenager. I'm not seeing him just because I'm I'm seeing him because I'm scared of him. He talks a lot of crap on her to me, and he's not supposed to do that. My mom never ever talks badly about him. He even plays the victim in like the situation with me, and I don't understand why. He is the reason I stopped seeing him, his actions.
I don't know how any parent that loves their kids could interfere with their relationship with the other parent. And for her to do that type of a thing to me is offensive and hurtful.
Well, Cory, let me say something to you. I asked McKinley when we sat down at the beginning of this conversation why she was here. She gave me a couple of reasons. One, she said she's concerned about her sister and half-siblings that still have a relationship with you and are exposed to you, because she thinks you're not being honest with yourself about your characteristics and your personality. But I asked her, are you done with this relationship? Are you through with your relationship with him? Is this over, given what you know? And, you know, strangely enough, she said, you know, not necessarily. It depends. I mean, it depends on him. If he's, anyone can change, anyone can come to grips, anyone can get help and modify their behavior and deal with things. It really depends on him and what he does, which surprised me given the impassioned feelings that she has. And I think what her hope is that you would take a different approach to this than what you have, and own. I'm not asking you to roll over on anything that you don't feel, but I think she's saying, you know, he plays the victim on everything, denies things that not just me, but everybody in his life, his current wife, his ex-wife, me, his sister, everybody agrees, everybody but him sees this very clearly, but he's still in denial about it. And if he's that delusional, what is the point in having a relationship with him? Because he's going to continue to delude himself and do the same thing. So what do you say about this? On the one hand, you say, I have PTSD, and so I realize I have problems with anger and rage. On the other hand, you say, I've never abused anybody ever. I've been a victim of these massages with these girls. Although I pled guilty, it's kind of like you don't have a very credible story. It doesn't make face validity. You said you were an investigator. You were a military investigator?
Yeah, I got a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I've been a military police officer.
Take yourself out of your situation and look at the facts objectively. Would you think that an individual, not you, has a very credible case given the facts as presented? You have 4 family members that all tell a very consistent story about you being abusive. You've pled guilty to charges that are a matter of record, and yet you say none of it's true. All 4 of those people are lying. The court's lying. The police reports are lying. Everybody's lying but me. I'm telling the truth. I'm the victim. Would you think that that person had a credible case as an objective investigator?
What's a man to do?
You backed yourself
For everybody,
into this
for
corner.
everybody here. I'm not a rapist. I'm not a Ted Bundy.
Are you going to evade the question? And later,
I don't think I can have a relationship with you anymore. It's toxic for me to be with someone who's abused me and can't even admit to it. You've put me through hell. I have PTSD from you.
would you think that that person had a credible case as an objective investigator?
Well, as an objective investigator, Dr. Phil, if I was investigating a case such as the one I was involved in, I'd interview all parties because my whole goal would be to prove the person innocent or guilty. You can't prove somebody innocent or guilty when you have not interviewed everybody involved in the situation. There was another female that was alleged to have driven the female.
That wasn't what I asked you. You know, you don't go to court to get convictions. You go to court in search for the truth. And court's just one part of this. The other part are your family members. Are you going to evade the question?
No, I'll answer the question.
Please.
Okay, I've admitted that I have been verbally abusive, because I have. That's something I have no problem admitting to. I've been verbally abusive to my current wife. She's been verbally abusive to me. I've been verbally abusive to my ex. She's been verbally abusive to me. I was probably a little more verbally abusive to the girls growing up when I get mad at something stupid they do. But I wasn't swinging bats at them. I wasn't hitting my kids. I wasn't hitting my dog. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. I have no problem admitting to my faults and my misdeeds and my skeletons in my closet. The whole thing with the massage therapist thing, I got put into a corner. I got backed into a corner by the prosecutor. It was either take a third-degree felony for dealing in a harmful material to a minor, or you can take the plea deal. Now, did Sheena, my ex-wife, and I have $15,000 for me to continue a legal case for trial preparation and everything else for my trial? No. Sheena and I discussed this. Sheena's McKinley's mom. We discussed this on how we would approach this. So when somebody's backed into a corner, never had a criminal complaint on them prior to that, never even had a traffic ticket, grew up with a father in law enforcement, was a police officer in the Navy, had been in the security industry 15 years up to that point in time, without any issue. What's a man to do? What's a military veteran to do who's signed the dotted line to give his life for everybody watching?
You backed yourself
For everybody,
into this
for
corner.
everybody here, to give my life for my constitutional rights to bear arms, and then have somebody come to me and say, oh, well, you're either going to take a felony and lose that right, or you're going to take a misdemeanor. I took control of my own destiny at that point in time. I did not have a choice but to take a plea deal. I was backed into a corner, and it was either you're going to fork out a buttload of money and go to trial, or you're going to plead to a felony, or you're going to plead to a Class A misdemeanor. And mind you, that plea deal that I took, it was never once alleged that I inappropriately touched any of those, that I inappropriately touched that girl that gave me a massage. And I pled to sexual battery. That is inappropriate touching of somebody outside of the clothing in the state of Utah, which is not even a sex offense in the state of Utah. In the state of Utah, it's a crime against the person. It's a crime against the person, but it does not fall in the same category as rape. I'm not a rapist. I'm not a Ted Bundy. Wasn't rape. Wasn't incest. Wasn't object rape. Wasn't any of that nonsense. So not only was I victimized by being backed into a corner, but my ex-wife was victimized by this whole thing. My daughters have been victimized by these allegations, and it makes me sick.
Would you like to know my response to that? My interpretation of everything you just said?
Everything I've said is fact from what's happened.
Would you like to know my interpretation of it?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to give it to McKinley and you right after the break. I expected the Star Spangled Banner to kick in at any moment while you were telling me how you were victimized.
Which is fact.
No, it's not a fact.
I felt like drugs were my only escape from my dad, and it was the only thing that could make me forget the pain he's caused me. I started abusing drugs, mostly marijuana, alcohol, Xanax. I blacked out on Xanax, went to someone's house, and I ended up getting raped that night and getting sent to a rehab. But when I was in rehab, my dad, he would continuously call, "Tell me about the night you got raped. I deserve to know. I'm your father, and I need to know what happened to you." And I just found that really sickening.
Well, Cory says he refuses to cast his daughter out as the black sheep of the family and claims to this very day he still invites her to all family events. McKinley says her father's refusal to just leave her alone has contributed to her trying to escape him by using drugs and alcohol and actually attempting to take her own life. Now, you're very frustrated by him right now, right?
Yes.
And I asked him if he wanted to know my interpretation, and he gave a socially desirable response, which was yes. I don't think he really does. Do you want to know my analysis of his response?
Yes.
There's something in psychology called undoing. There's different words for it, but it's undoing. It's where I'm going to tell you one thing, and then I'm going to quickly undo it. Like, I'll admit I've been verbally abusive. However, let me immediately disassemble that answer and take that back, because in the same sentence, he says, I've been verbally abusive to my ex-wife, and she was verbally abusive to me. I've been verbally abusive to my current wife, and she's been verbally abusive to me. So, quickly, let's balance this out where I'm not the doer of deeds here. This is a tit for tat sort of thing. And then he got into what are called convincing statements. It's like if I ask you, did you steal the petty cash in the office? Instead of saying, not just no, but hell no, it's me. Ask anybody. I donate more money than was stolen. I was in the Army. I've got a flag hanging over my desk. I give to old women and little children. I'm convincing you I'm a good guy, but I have no credible evidence I didn't take that money. I'm just convincing you. They're called convincing statements. And the longer I'm talking about what a good guy I am, I'm not talking about whether I took the petty cash or not. And I expected the Star Spangled Banner to kick in at any moment while you were telling me all of this about how you were victimized and backed into a corner.
Which is fact.
No, it's not a fact. It's your spin on the circumstances. Not at any time did you say, in retrospect, having been a military man, military police, and military investigator, when I'm limping down the hall and two young girls, whatever age, walk up to me and ask me if I want a massage, I'm savvy enough to know, you know what, if I do, I'll go to a physical therapist or I will go to a licensed massage therapist. I'm smart enough to know, as the head of a security organization, I need to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. The place to make a deal to get a massage is not with two girls I meet in the hallway and go to a hotel room and get in a bed. Now, come on.
Yeah.
Now, that's dumber than a box of rocks. If you are completely innocent, you're guilty of being dumber than a box of rocks.
I can see what was causing my verbal
I really don't know why I'm on this stage. I don't get how you have such bad PTSD because you never fought in the war.
You ought to have enough sense to say that I need to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. So from that point forward, your victim story to me is like, you're not owning the fact that you made bad choices. If everything you're saying is true, if you got extorted, set up, played like a fiddle, your analysis of it should be deconstructing this. I didn't make a very good choice, and everything that flowed from that I got to own because I wasn't very smart about it.
Yeah, it was a bad situation.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you put yourself in that situation, and you need to own that. And, oh, and by the way, I paid the hooker $100 to not do anything. That doesn't pass the interocular impact test. It just doesn't look good. And you pretend that doesn't look bad.
no, that looks bad.
Yeah, no kidding. That looks bad. I paid the hooker to not do something. I mean, really, and that's what she's saying. Come on, Dad. You got to own this. And you say, I have PTSD. And by the way, I do thank you for your service. And I take PTSD very, very seriously. And I do give you the benefit of the doubt in that you may not be cognizant of how much it changes the way you behave sometimes. But you're not being honest with yourself about how things look and about how others may see you. You're not being very honest with yourself about how intimidating you are to the people around you. And this narrative that you developed is a narcissistic narrative because you tell it as though you expect people to believe it. And I could stop 100 cars on Sunset right now, and there would not be 98 of them that would buy 10% of your story. It's just, and it's narcissistic to expect people to believe it. It's naive and narcissistic. It's not a good story. Now, I just don't think you are aware of how you are seen by other people. And by the way, she is intimidated and afraid of your abusive nature. She has not said that you have sexually molested her. She has not said that you have crossed the line. She's not made those allegations towards you. You need to be clear about that.
Absolutely.
She said, you know, in looking back, it makes me want to rethink everything that's taken place, but I have no recollections of these things. You've made no allegations of that nature, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So, you know, she has boundaries here. She's not just throwing you under the bus, but you're not being honest with yourself. And to someone like me, you lose all credibility. If you told me it was light outside right now, I would go look, because I just don't think you are objective. We have to take a break. So what's to be done here? Should you have a relationship here? What should be done here? My thoughts after the break. He's not a victim here. He put himself in this situation. You don't own those things, then you have a choice of saying, he's not my job. I'm back with McKinley and her father, Cory. They have an estranged relationship. Cory wants a relationship with his daughter. McKinley doesn't know whether she wants a relationship with her father or not. And you say that you've made some bad decisions here. You've tried to practice escapism from this situation, drugs, alcohol, even tried to take your own life. And you say that you don't consider hurting yourself anymore. That's off the table with you, correct?
Correct.
Why is it off the table with you now?
Because I learned to realize through all the rehabs I've been through and stuff that suicide doesn't just like end the pain, it just spreads the pain to everyone that loves you, and I think that's very, very selfish, even though I'm in so much pain from this situation, and it feels like I'll never be able to escape it. It's still not worth killing myself over someone that's hurt me and hurting everyone around me because of that.
Let's assume, and I'm not saying you agree with any of this, okay? But let's assume that your father has made some bad decisions. Like I said, he should have known better. He should know to avoid even the appearance of impropriety.
Absolutely.
I mean, let's say that, let's go with his victim story for a minute. Okay, I'm not saying you agree with it. Let's just go with it for a minute. He is at a minimum guilty of not having good problem recognition skills, that he didn't recognize as a father and a husband and the head of a security department that going into a hotel room with two young women at any age, that's just not good problem recognition skills, that this just doesn't look good. I mean...
Doesn't look good at all.
Lassie could figure this out. This doesn't take a deep thinking to figure this out. That he just didn't have good problem recognition skills. Let's just assume that's all he's guilty of. I'm not saying you believe that for 2 seconds, but let's just say that's it. He's not a victim here. He put himself in this situation. He has turned the corner of admitting that he has a rage issue, that he gets verbally abusive. He hasn't admitted being physically abusive. He hasn't admitted that he's been abusive and aggressive with the dog, but he has admitted that he has a temper and a rage problem. He has admitted that he probably has PTSD, and I think a light bulb has at least begun to flicker over his head that we create our own experience, and that if he got chewed up and spit out by the legal system, he put himself in that situation by bad choices. These are things that he's visited upon himself. You don't own those things, and if he wants to continue to stomp through life, you know, there are ways to go through life. You can either go through kicking and screaming, or you can just say, look, I need to pull my head out and find ways that I can improve my journey. Now, he may or may not choose to improve his. But you have to give yourself permission to say, you know what, I came down here, I made myself heard, and I'm telling you, you have your whole life ahead of you, and you have to do two things. You've got to give yourself permission to be free of this toxic nature if that's what he continues to do. And say, you know what, I'm going to learn to value myself, whether I have the kind of strength and support and validation from a healthy father or whether I don't. I'm going to choose to value myself and hold myself to high standards, whether I have his help and support in that or not. And I don't know what he's going to say or what he's going to do, but I know that you are an adult and you have a choice of saying, he's not my job. I'm my job, and I got to be my own best friend and take care of myself. And you have to be willing to do that and say, I've done what I needed to do. You've extended a huge olive branch here conditionally. And you should not have a relationship with your father until a professional tells you that step by step, a little at a time, it's healthy for you to do so. And right now, I'm telling you, it is not healthy for you to do so. That you are better off on your own.
Yeah, I completely agree. You haven't taken accountability for shutting me in the room, for hitting me, for starving me,
When did
for not
that
taking me to
happen?
school. You can't even let me speak a sentence.
I'm all about unifying families, not fragmenting families. There's nothing that I would love better than for you two to have a healthy relationship. I do not believe you are an evil human being by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think you're being honest with yourself. I think you put yourself in a bad situation, and I think you have a problem with rage, and I think you've been a bull in a china shop, and I think you need to rethink that situation because you have a daughter that, despite everything, whether she's 50% right, 31% right, whatever, she has left a door open to have a relationship with you.
As do I.
And you have to be willing to take a hard look at yourself and figure out if you have a rage problem, which I think you do, what you can do to dissipate that. But you've got to deal with this narrative you have about being a victim and being pissed off about it. This is not something that has ruined your life, but you can ruin your life if you don't decide that this is a turnaround event in your life. And you need some serious self-examination with regard to anger and abusive ways. And what you consider abuse and what others consider abuse are different definitions. And you need professional help with that. And I'll help you get that if you're willing to take it.
Yeah, I'd love some help, Dr. Phil. I mean, that whole situation was a bad situation. I mean, I've acknowledged, you know, that whole thing with the criminal offense that happened, the getting into the situation. I was accountable for getting myself into the situation, yes. But yes.
Say something?
But yes,
Yes.
I don't think I can have a relationship with you anymore, actually. After this whole show, you still have not taken accountability for hitting the dog in front of me and laughing at it. You haven't taken accountability for shutting me in the room, for hitting me, for starving me,
When did
for not
that
taking me to
happen?
school.
I never
Listen,
did that.
I'm just trying to say this.
And I'm defending myself to the facts.
You can't even let me speak a sentence. I'm saying you've put me through hell. I have PTSD from you. You don't see me hitting people. I get PTSD is very hard, but I think you have a lot more wrong with you than PTSD. And I don't think you're gonna get, I don't think you're really gonna take getting help seriously. And you're disrespecting me a lot by not even being able to acknowledge the things that you have done, that other people have seen you do. And I don't want to just kick out my dad of my life, and that hurts to do, but it's toxic for me to be with someone who's abused me and can't even admit to it, because what's stopping you from doing it again if you can't even admit to it and get help
I've
for
never
that?
been physically abusive to you or the dog.
You fit
Mom,
me, you fit Cammy,
mom
you
never,
fit my mom, you gave my sister a black eye,
mom
you
never,
fit the dog.
mom never said anything about that in the report. Yeah, I was
The
diagnosed.
system's broken and it's hard to do that, and you, I don't get how you have such bad PTSD because you never fought in the war.
I was
you never fought in
diagnosed
the
with
war.
PTSD through a vehicle accident, and I got heat stroke down at Fort Irwin, California, on active duty. I was diagnosed in 2018. That's why I was telling Dr. Phil, when I look back, I can see now why, I can see what was causing my verbal anger.
I really don't know why I'm on this stage still, because I'm just hearing you lie.
Robin is one of the foremost ambassadors in the fight against domestic violence in the entire country. And she speaks about this and teaches about this and has a whole curriculum about this. And Robin, sometimes people think abuse is just hitting somebody else. And it can be so much more than that, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. You don't have to have a scar. You don't have to be bleeding to be a victim of domestic violence, of sexual assault. And what you have done here today, I admire you greatly. And I'm very proud of you because you are standing up to your abuser. You are. And you are an abuser. But lots of times abusers don't even know it. And that's what is so key about domestic violence. It is a silent epidemic because a lot of times, that's why I said education is key, because you can be an abuser your entire life and not know it. And until you take the step to learn about abuse and learn what the traits are and what the characteristics are of an abuser, you will never be able to admit that you are one. And what she is telling you is the traits of one, and that you have abused her entire life. And she's being very strong today, and I'm very proud of you for trying to educate your father. And it's time that you acknowledge it and turn that abuse around. And until you do, you will never be able to have a relationship with your daughter or anyone else in your family or anyone else for that matter. It is time that you today take the step to acknowledge that you are an abuser and that you need to do what you have to do to turn that around.
Both of you need to get some help with this. Individually, not together. I'm not saying we need family counseling here. And I'm going to set up 10 sessions with you and 10 sessions with you with Doctor On Demand, because we're in a pandemic, and Doctor On Demand is a telemedicine company. And they set up teletherapy where you can be in front of a doctoral level therapist, licensed, legitimate therapist, that you make an appointment. You can do it from the comfort and privacy of your own home. You've done some important things here today. I just want a chance to build on that, okay?
For sure.
Okay?
Sounds good.
And I have a lot of confidence in Doctor On Demand. It's a company that my son and I started, and these are very qualified, solid people, so I have great confidence in it, and so we'll start there. All right, we have to stop. We're out of time. I hope both of you will give this a lot of thought. I want to thank all of my guests today. For more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you can subscribe to Robin's podcast, I've Got a Secret. It's very interesting. We'll see you next time. Stay safe. Really, stay safe. We're not out of the woods on this pandemic yet. All right, everybody, thank you very much. Okay?